So now that we covered that, I really want to jump into more of these densities that are being worked out in the lower frequencies of our beingness that are being worked out. And I'm really going to concentrate on the emotional densities because those are the pieces that seem a little convoluted for a lot of humans. They are the thing that we have been more taught to avoid in our collective because emotions don't matter. If you speak from your emotions, if you are an emotional being, that tends to be shamed a little bit. Oh, you're so sensitive. I've been told that my entire life. Oh, but you're just too sensitive. And yet, that is one of the largest pieces of intelligence that we hold in our multidimensional being. And yet, it's been the part of us that has been shamed for so long. So we've been taught then collectively to, don't cry, don't express yourself. If you do express yourself, you're emotional or you're sensitive or you're crazy. And we have been really taught to turn to the intellectual piece, and we can intellectualize almost anything. So if you have a discerning feeling towards something, or you ever have in your life, and you come from that feeling, most times in our collective, we will be told some intellectual, factual thing that diminishes the feeling. And yet, what makes a whole intellectual being, multidimensional being, is answering the call of not only the intellectual side of us, but also the 4D emotional side of us. That's where our intuitive feeling, that's the portal between the spiritual self, the 5D self, which is where all of this knowledge comes from, this universal knowledge. And that's the part of us that is discerning for us what intellectual information is for our best good and which is not. And it comes through the feeling portal, our 4D self, for us to then say, this doesn't quite feel right. And then in what we typically do is then take it into the physical and say, this doesn't feel right. Like what you just said, you said the words intellectually, and yet it didn't feel congruent with the words. And when we call people out on that, or we actually speak our truth, then they say, well, all I said was this, so you're just crazy. And yet what we are doing here, what we are learning to do with these higher energies is bringing ourselves up into that emotional, intellectual, the light quotient, the emotional quotient of who we are, the emotional intelligence of who we are. We are increasing that so it matches the intellectual information, the intellectual intelligence of us, and now we have a whole intelligence that's helping us to walk through this time in our history, and we can actually do that with critical thinking and creativity, which is all part of the emotional intellectual piece, because it's not something that's learned, it's inherent in us, it's inherent in every single human being. And yet we haven't been taught about it, we haven't been taught how to nurture it. Therefore, it has been diminished. So all we have really been taught to go on is intellectual intelligence. So we're only working with half of our intelligence.